everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. So we are here today because recently I posted a video where I was talking about book series that I started recently that I cannot wait to continue, mainly fantasy and fantasy romance series. I am still very much in my fantasy era, which is very exciting because in 2023, I feel like I barely read any fantasy, so I'm just very excited to be in this mood right now. So I thought that I would just document my reading experience, reading some sequels in these series that I started, especially in December. Like, December was the month of me reading first books in a series. I swear I started at least like 5 new series last month. I don't have a whole lot to say because I just started this a little while ago. This is Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. Look at this stunning cover. This is book 2 in her Divine Rivals duet or duology. If you guys watched any of my Vlogmas vlogs in December, you would know that I read Divine Rivals and I absolutely adored it. Oh my God, it ended up being one of my top 10 books of 2023, and I am so excited about this book. I just got the audiobook from my Libby app. The wait was supposed to be several weeks long, but it came in last night, and so I started this just a little while ago. I'm literally an hour into the audiobook. I'm like on page 33, yeah, not very far into this at all, but I did just want to mention that I started this book. I'm very excited to get more into it. The basic premise from book 1 was that we have Iris and Roman. This is taking place in a fantastical world where there's this war being fought between 2 gods. So this setting very much feels like World War I, both in the type of warfare that is being fought, and also just like in the kinds of clothing that people are wearing, just the descriptions of this setting. But it's basically this star-crossed lovers story between Iris and Roman, and how they eventually are on the war front being war correspondents. And there's so much more to the story than that. I could go on and on, but I just loved book 1 so much, and I'm already really enjoying book 2, even though I'm like 30 pages in, and the ending of book 1 was absolutely insane. So I cannot wait to see how our story continues in the second and final book. And then last book to talk about for this update, I have been talking for a while, is House of Sky and Breath. Oh my God, I finally started this. I am so proud of myself. So in December, I finally reread House of Earth and Blood. I had read that book in 2020, around the time that it had come out. And then this book was published in 2022, but I kept putting off reading this book until I reread book 1, House of Earth and Blood, but I kept putting off rereading that book until finally House of Flame and Shadow is coming out at the end of this month. And so it was definitely time for me to get caught up with this series, but also I'm a part of the Crescent City read along, which is co-hosted by a few of my very favorite booktubers. I'll link all of them down in the description below. I don't want to try to name them because I feel like I'm gonna forget someone and I don't want to do that. So we had a live show discussion for House of Earth and Blood. We have a live show discussion for House of Sky and Breath on the 20th. Today is the 14th, so I have a little less than a week until the live show, but I'm already on page like 300. So I definitely think I can finish in the next few days. So I really don't have too much to say without going into major spoilers, and I'm definitely not going to go into major spoilers, except maybe when I'm finished this book, I might discuss a few spoilers with you guys, but I'll definitely let you know like when the spoiler section is, so do not worry. But I am loving this book so far. I'm getting a very similar feeling to when I read House of Earth and Blood, because we once again have this just very steady buildup of events and world building and information, and I'm sure by the last like 200 pages shit is going to go down. I already know part of how this ends, like kind of, like I have an idea of one of the things that's gonna happen at the end of this book, because I was definitely spoiled for that like at some point last year, which is totally fine, honestly. It kind of makes for an exciting reading experience because I'm looking for any foreshadowing in this book for sure, to that particular aspect of the ending. But essentially we are introduced to two brand new characters. This has really nothing to do with book one, so it's not a spoiler by any means. At the very beginning of this book, we are introduced to Sophie and Emile. Essentially, they both have these crazy powers, and Sophie in particular has some insane intel about the Asteri, which are the beings that rule over Midgard, which is the planet that this series takes place in. And so now all these people are after Sophie and Emile, though Sophie is presumed dead at the moment, but there's evidence that suggests that she's not dead. And so we're just kind of unraveling that mystery, and I just love scenes that we're getting in this book with just like the whole gang coming together and strategizing and coming up with theories and investigating. I love that characters like Rune, Ethan, and Tharian are being featured a lot more in this book. I had a feeling that that was going to be the case when I was reading House of Earth and Blood, and I just cannot wait to learn more and more about this world and to see where the plot goes and to see shit go down by the end, you know? That's something you can always look forward to with a Sarah J. Maas book. So for tonight, my goal is to read 100 pages of this. That's kind of been my daily goal, is to read about 100 pages a day, because this is like 800 pages and it's epic high fantasy. So I definitely need to pace myself and not try to read too much. Though the other day I read the first 200 pages and I felt like I like flew through them. But now that we're getting more and more into the nitty gritty of this story, I feel like I need to kind of slow down my reading pace and just read like 100 pages at a time. So that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of tonight. And then if I feel like it, after reading my 100 pages, I will read some more of Ruthless Vows. Also, since this is a fantasy romance reading vlog, I wanted to quickly mention that I started a brand new series by a brand new to me author, and I am obsessed. So the other day I finished Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This is book one in her War of Lost Hearts trilogy. This is an epic fantasy romance, and I was so blown away by this book. And this is only book one of the trilogy. Oh my God. I'm not gonna talk about this book too much in this video. Tomorrow I'm filming my mid-month wrap up, or my recent reads video, where I will be discussing this book in depth. But just know that this blew me away. I'm absolutely obsessed with Carissa Broadbent now. I'm like her #1 fan, and I've only read one of her books. So I can't wait to read everything that she has written. So if I do another vlog like this, which I definitely think I will, this series will definitely be featured in that. So with all that being said, I need to stop talking to you guys, and I need to read more of House of Guy and Breath. All right, hey guys, happy Tuesday. Today I had an unexpected day off because currently in South Louisiana, we are experiencing a hard freeze, which means that it's below 33 or 32 degrees, which is very, very unusual for us. I know that some of you guys that live up north or in other parts of the world, you guys are like scoffing at the fact that it got as low as 27 down here. But just know that the norm for us in the winter is it usually doesn't get any colder than like the lower 40s. So the fact that we're having a hard freeze is absolutely insane. So because of that, schools were closed, and the studio where I work was closed. So it was kind of nice to have this unexpected day off because I'm getting a lot of filming done. I just filmed my most recent reads video where I show you guys how I did this makeup look, which I'm very happy with how this came out. I don't know if you can tell, but I did what is known as a cut crease for the eyeshadow, and that took me a while to achieve, but I'm really happy with how it came out. So I'm sure that video will be up well before this video goes up. But I have some updates about the 2 books that I have been working my way through. So first up, we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second and final book in the Divine Rivals duology. I talked about this a little bit in my first update, but I didn't have a lot to say because I was like on page 33 or something. But what I will say is that at the beginning of this book, I felt like the pacing was kind of slow and I wasn't really sure where the plot was gonna go. I just was not sure about this book, and I was a little worried that I wasn't going to love this nearly as much as book 1. However, as the book has been going along, I'm currently on page 166, and that is 40% of the way through. So I have made quite a bit of progress on this, and I haven't done any reading today because I've just been filming and doing other things. But as the book has been going along, the pacing definitely picked up. I'm really intrigued by where the plot is going. I like that we are seeing a lot of Dacre, who is one of the gods who is fighting this war. It's a war between Dacre and Enva. And it's kind of like a Hades and Persephone gone wrong. Now they are fighting a war against each other. But I love that we're seeing a lot of Dacre. I'm hoping that throughout the course of the rest of this book, we'll get to see some of Enva, because I'd love to get her perspective as well. But so that's really cool. I love what's going on with Iris and Roman's story. I was gonna call him Rowan. This is not Throne of Glass. I just really love what's going on with their storylines and what's going on with this war. I think that this world is just so cool. It's definitely more like magical realism than true fantasy, just because there's no set magic system. And I think that frustrated a lot of readers who just read Divine Rivals. Like, I've seen a lot of mixed reviews of Divine Rivals, and I think that one of the main criticisms is that there isn't a magic system. But I think if you go into that book knowing that you're not going to understand the magic, I think you'll enjoy it more. I have been making some progress on House of Sky and Breath by Miss Sarah J. Maas. I am on page 505, and I think when I updated you guys the other day, I was on page like 300. A lot is happening. I can't really say much because this is book 2 in an epic fantasy series. Anything I would say would spoil it in some way. But I am just very intrigued about the direction this story is going in, the direction this war is going in, because of course there's a war going on. It's fantasy. Yeah, like, and where I just left off, if you read this book, if you know, you know, but where I just left off, like, what is even happening? Where are we? What are we doing? Like, this book is getting crazy epic, and we aren't even close to the end. We have 300 pages until the end of this book. So I'm very intrigued and interested to see what's going to happen going forward in this. I'm definitely gonna read about 100 pages tonight. I have a couple more videos that I want to film today before I can get back into reading. I am filming a reader time capsule book tag video, and then I am also filming my Audible TBR. I have purchased so many audiobooks off of Audible that I have not listened to. So I'm just holding myself accountable by filming that video, and I'm hoping that filming the video will also inspire me to actually listen to more of those audiobooks. So yeah, that's what's going on for the rest of the day. I will probably update you guys at some point tomorrow. It just depends on how much reading I get done tonight. All right, happy Saturday, everyone. It has been a few days since I last updated you guys, but I have 2 books that I have finished since my last update, and I have another book that I am in the middle of. But before we get to the reading update, I have a few books that I have bought myself recently. Actually, the first book I have to share is one that I won from a giveaway, so that's very exciting. This is Peer Pressure by B. Perkins and Amy Vance. This is book 4 in their Deadlight's Cove series, and I won a giveaway that Megan from Lady with a Quill was doing on Instagram. I like never win giveaways, so I was very, very excited to see that I won this one, and she gave me the choice to pick any one of her top 10 books of 2023, and this one sounded the most intriguing. I had never heard of this series or these authors. So it looks like our hero and heroine, Lysander and Maisie, are being put into arranged marriages with other people, Lysander to a bear shifter and Maisie to a demon. And so they decide to pretend to be in a serious relationship to avoid these arranged marriages. I think they're both mer people, based off of the cover, I'm gonna guess that. Then I also got Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This book I think has gone viral on Book Talk. I wouldn't really know because I don't go on Book Talk or TikTok for that matter, but I've just heard a lot of my friends talking about this book recently. I know Jess loved this book. She was obsessed with it. But I've also heard some pretty mixed reviews. So this is a YA fantasy that is heavily inspired by The Hunger Games. Personally, I don't mind when books are inspired by really popular books or ideas or what have you. That doesn't really annoy me, but I could understand why some people would roll their eyes at that. But this one is about Peyton, who is powerless. She is just like a normal human. And then we have Kai, who is a prince who must have magical abilities. And Peyton has been pretending to be a psychic, pretending to have magical abilities, because I think in this world, the elites, the people that have power, are killing off regular humans. And so her and Kai end up in these Hunger Game-like trials together. And so I'm just very intrigued. I think I'm really gonna enjoy this because I love me some YA fantasy. I think it's just gonna be a fun time, at least I hope so. Next, I am so excited. I got One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, both by Rachel Gillig. These are books 1 and 2 in a gothic fantasy romance duet or duology. I recently heard Tori rave and rave about this series in particular, so I'm very excited. I feel like I'm gonna love this. I have heard people talk about the synopsis like several times and I still don't really know what this is about, but that's okay. I'm totally fine going into this series pretty blind. I'm also obsessed with these covers. Oh my gosh, they are a whole vibe. I love gothic stories. I love fantasy. I of course love romance. So if you're gonna combine all of those things into one story, I have a feeling that I'm really gonna love it. Next, I have 2 books by Carissa Broadbent. You guys know that I am like her biggest fan now, and I've only read one of her books. This one is 6 Scorched Roses. This is a novella that is part of her Crowns of Nyaxia series. So that is the series. It's like Serpent and the Wings of Night is book 1, and then you read this novella and then you read book 2, I believe. Maybe you read books 1 and 2 and then you read this novella. I can't quite remember. But I've heard amazing things about this novella, and I think this is such a cool cover. And then I also got this paperback of Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, also by Carissa Broadbent. This is a standalone fantasy romance of hers. I've heard incredible things about this book as well, and I really like this paperback cover. I also like the original hardcover cover, but this one just looked really cool, and so I decided to get this one for my collection. And then last but not least, we have another Carissa Broadbent book. I got Mother of Death and Dawn, which is book 3, the final book in her War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I think I mentioned Daughter of No Worlds earlier in this vlog, which is book 1. This is just a stunning cover. I am so excited to have this whole series in my personal library as well. So let's move on to my reading update. I have finished both Ruthless Vows and House of Sky and Breath. So let's talk about Ruthless Vows first, because I don't have too much to say about this one. This, I thought, was a beautiful ending to the Letters of Enchantment duology. I loved the direction that Roman and Iris's story went in. I loved that we got to see Enva and Dacre, these two gods that are fighting this war. I decided to give this 4.5 stars though, just because this book didn't feel quite as epic and all-consuming for me like Divine Rivals was, like book 1 was. But like I said, this was still a beautiful story, stunning writing. I love Rebecca Ross's writing. I'm gonna have to check out her other books. There is another duology of hers that has been recommended to me that I definitely will be checking out at some point. But overall, I am so glad that I read this duology. These covers are stunning. The story inside is just as stunning. And it's a story that I know I won't soon forget. It definitely has its own unique feeling to it. So we have House of Sky and Breath. So just like with my reread of House of Earth and Blood last month, I also stayed up until like 5:30 a.m., not last night, but the night before, finishing this, because if you've read Sarah J. Maas, you know once you get to the last like 150 pages or so, you kind of can't stop. You have to keep reading until the end, just because the pacing gets so much faster and just crazy shit is happening. Overall, I gave this 4.5 stars. I have some conflicting feelings about this book, and I am still shocked and sad that I did not give this 5 stars, because this is the first Sarah J. Maas book that I have read in a very long time that I have given less than 5 stars. Every book by her that I have read since like Heir of Fire and Akamath, I have given 5 stars, and those books have ended up in my like top 10 books of the year that I read them. Like, I clearly am very obsessed with her and her stories and her writing. Let me give some non-spoiler thoughts first. I think at the end of the day, this book and this story is just not up to par to House of Earth and Blood. Since rereading that book, I have realized that that is some of Sarah's best writing, one of her best stories that she's ever told. I adore that book with my heart and soul. And this story just does not match up in my mind. I think that my favorite part of this book was probably the world building. I thought that that was really cool, really interesting, especially in the last like 100 pages. We get some really crazy information and world building, especially about the Asteri, which are the beings that govern over Midgard, which is the planet that this series takes place on. There were definitely parts of this where I was loving where the story was going, and I was loving all the different POVs that we get in this book. I think my favorite character of the series at this point is Rune. I love Rune with my heart and soul. I like Bryce and Hunt and the other characters, but Rune, to me, I just love him so much. But there were also some points where I felt the pacing wasn't great. I have conflicting feelings about the very end, and I'll get to that in a minute. So yeah, unfortunately, this is just not my favorite Sarah J. Maas book. It just doesn't measure up, in my opinion, to book 1. So we shall see what I think about House of Flame and Shadow for sure. I think I'm gonna do a reading vlog dedicated to that book, because I have a feeling that so much is gonna happen in that book that I'm gonna want to document my whole reading experience. So yeah, let's get into the spoiler thoughts. So if you have not read this book, go to this timestamp to avoid spoilers. So I am annoyed with how the plot line about Sophie and Emil ended. Well, who knows if it's really ended, but the way that it ended in this book, at least. You know, the fact that we've spent like 500 pages looking for Sophie, looking for Emile, because Emile is supposed to have just as much power as Sophie, and then Sophie has this crazy intel about the Asteri, only to find that Sophie's dead and Emile doesn't have any powers. As far as we know, he could still have some powers, but we're told that he's just a human. I was just annoyed that we spent so much page time looking for these characters only for it to have such an anticlimactic ending. I have conflicting thoughts about the very end of this book. What I will say is I loved the last 100 pages, specifically where Bryce is in the Asteri archives and she finds out that the Asteri are just sucking power from everyone on Midgard, and that they've been doing this to other planets for thousands and thousands of years. I loved that. I thought that that was fantastic world building. I thought that that was just written so well. I was freaking out reading that part. Like, I had to stop the audiobook and like underline lots of passages in that part of the book specifically to really fully comprehend what was going on. I thought that was so cool. Then the very end, I think I told you guys earlier in this vlog that I was already spoiled for the fact that there was going to be crossover between the ACOTAR series and the Crescent City series. I'm a little bit disappointed about incorporating the ACOTAR characters into this series because we're only on book 2 of the series. Part of me wants there to be at least another book that is solely centered around these characters and this world before we even think about incorporating characters from another series and another world of Sarah's, right? Like, I don't know. But on the other hand, I feel like this book on its own wasn't good enough, and so they kind of had to end it with some crazy shit like that to make it a better book, to make it a good book, right? Feel free to DM me on Instagram, by the way, if you want to talk spoilers about this book. I don't want you guys to leave comments on this video that are spoilery, because there's probably going to be people watching this vlog that have not read this book yet. But definitely feel free to DM me. I am at Rachel Reads and Sings on Instagram, as well as on here, obviously. But I'm conflicted, and I feel like I'm in the minority of that. I feel like everybody else is freaking out at that ending and really, really excited for House of Flame and Shadow. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit wary going into House of Flame and Shadow. I'm also not very happy with what Sarah J. Maas and her publisher posted the other day. They posted a major, major spoiler. It was literally an excerpt from House of Flame and Shadow where it was like Bryce was running through like the cave or something, and Nesta and Azrael were right there. Like, a huge spoiler for this book and, you know, for the Sarah J. Maas universe as a whole. Like, just, yeah, I'm still salty about that. Okay, that's gonna be it for spoilers. One last thought about this book that is not spoilery is I was actually not crazy about like how many spicy scenes were in this book, which is crazy coming from me because I'm a romance reader. I love spicy romances. I love romance novels, right? But I couldn't help but feel like all of those spicy scenes were just kind of forced into the book to appease all of the people that complained about House of Earth and Blood not being spicy at all. I mean, there is one scene in House of Earth and Blood, but not much happens in that scene. And so then I felt like either her publisher or her editor or whoever basically made her write all of those spicy scenes to appease those people. And so, yeah, that's just my thoughts. And also, like, I'm not super obsessed with Bryce and Hunt, so like, I personally also didn't feel like all of those scenes were necessary for that reason. I like them, I don't love them. I need to stop talking to you guys because I need to go get ready for this live show. But yeah, I definitely think I'm settling on like a 4.5 star overall, because there is a lot of good things going on in this book, but the things that I didn't like, I really didn't like, you know? So I did jump into Ruthless Fae, which is the second book in the Zodiac Academy series by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. I'm already like almost like 60% of the way through. I read book 1 during Vlogmas during December, and I had a really fun time with it. This is the kind of series that I feel you can just like turn your brain off and have a good time with. It's just so much drama. This is taking place at Zodiac Academy, which is like a magical college. This takes place in the Fae world of Solaria. We have Darcy and Tori. They are twins who have lived in the human world all of their lives, and when they turn 18, they are brought to Zodiac Academy to train and to hopefully take over the throne of Solaria, because they are the lost heirs of the throne. But there are these 4 celestial heirs, these 4 guys that do not want them to take the throne, and so they've been bullying the shit out of them in book 1, and they're still bullying them in book 2, and yeah, just lots of drama and shenanigans happening, and I am so entertained. I am so hooked. I like these characters. I like this world. I feel like I'm reading a magical soap opera. Like, that's what it feels like. It's just so dramatic, and I'm so here for it. So having a fun time with this. I will definitely finish this at some point tonight, probably, because I have been flying through this audiobook, and so I'll definitely give you guys an update about this at some point tomorrow, as well as what book I decide to pick up next. All right, hey everyone. Today is Sunday. Actually, I can take my hair down. I was working out earlier, so that's why I had my hair up. But I have 2 books to update you guys on. So the first one is Ruthless Vows. This is book 2 in the Zodiac Academy series. I finished this late last night. I flew through this book. This is just one of those series that, like I said, you can kind of turn your brain off and just have a good time, especially if you have the audiobooks. Like, you can just sit back, listen to the audiobook, you know, and just be entertained by the shenanigans, because there are a lot of shenanigans happening in this series with these characters. You know, we've got Darcy and Tori, our 2 main characters, and then we have the 4 celestial heirs who've been bullying them. One thing that I really like about this installment is that we've been getting chapters from their POV. It's not just Darcy and Tori telling the story. And then we have Professor Orion, or Lance, who also gets some POV in this book. And yeah, this had a very dramatic ending, just like book 1 did. I have a feeling that every book is going to have a very dramatic cliffhanger. And I've heard that each book gets more and more devastating as we go along. So, you know, trying to prepare myself for that. But I will probably read book 3, I don't know, maybe next month, whenever I'm in the mood for it. I feel like with this kind of story, you know, it's giving bully romance, it's giving student-teacher romance, so much drama. You know, I definitely need to really be in the mood for this type of story before going into the next book, you know. So I think I'm gonna read like 2 more books for this vlog. I kind of want to center each of these like series vlogs around like maybe 5 books, so that each vlog doesn't get too long. So the next book I started is The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I love this cover so much. Purple is my favorite color, so of course I'm gonna love this. This is book 2 in her Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. We are centering around Evangeline and Jax. In the first book, we see that Jax is the Prince of Hearts, and he's an immortal. He's known as a fate. And so Evangeline makes a deal with him at the very beginning of book 1 so that he will stop her true love from marrying her stepsister. So lots of drama from the very beginning of this series for sure. And so book 1 I enjoyed. I featured book 1 in my last Vlogmas vlog of December. But I can already tell you that I'm definitely enjoying this book more. I feel like the plot is more interesting and more focused. I feel like there was a lot of different things going on in book 1, and it felt a little all over the place, but I feel like this book is finding its footing, you know, and it's just interesting where the story is going. So I'm currently on page 105. That is just about 25% of the way through. I'm sure I will be able to finish this, probably not tomorrow, because Mondays are my very long work days. I know I'm not gonna have much time to read tomorrow, but probably by like Tuesday, Wednesday by the latest, I'll be able to finish this. I really enjoy the vibe of this series. It's very whimsical, gives me vibes of Alice in Wonderland, because there's definitely a bit of like nonsensical whimsy going on in this world and in this story. I'm very intrigued and interested to see how this romance develops between Jax and Evangeline, because we really didn't get like any development between the two of them in book one. Like there was inklings of romantic and sexual tension at times, but we really didn't get much of anything in that first book. I'm gonna go to bed soon. I am feeling tired. Plus, like I said, tomorrow is gonna be a very long day for me work-wise, so I definitely should get a decent amount of sleep tonight. But I really, really, really wanna start a new Dramione fic. I really wanna start Wait and Hope by Might Be Writing. And this is actually the same author who wrote Season Pass, which was a novella length Dramione fic that I read like a week or two ago, and it was really fun and really sexy. This one I know is going to be a lot more emotional. I've just been dying to read this ever since I heard Jessin from Jessin Reads Romance rave about this one in her best and worst books of 2023 video. This one, from what I understand, is about Draco and Hermione. They've been married for a few years at this point. Hermione gets in some kind of accident and she loses a lot of her memories to the point where she does not know Draco as her husband. So I have a feeling I'm gonna love this. I love this plot setup. I haven't read a Dramione fic like this before, and there is an audiobook for this on Spotify. Y'all, Spotify is coming in clutch with the audiobooks for fanfics. Like there's so many audiobooks, especially for Dramione fanfics in particular. Yeah, I'm gonna start this audiobook tonight and then I will go to bed, and I'll talk to you guys probably not tomorrow, because like I said, I really don't think I'm gonna get much reading done tomorrow, but I'll probably talk to you guys on Tuesday. Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done an update for this vlog. I want to say I haven't done an update since like Sunday or Monday. I don't even know at this point. But today is Thursday night. It's just about 10 p.m. I got home from work a little while ago. I did my dance workout for the day. I just took a shower, as you can see, and I am ready to give you guys a reading update. So I'm feeling good at the moment. First things first, I did finish The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. I could stare at this cover all day. Look at the purple, it's so pretty. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I do think overall I enjoyed it more than book one. Like I said in my last update, I feel like this story was more focused. And there's definitely romantic development going on between Jax and Evangeline. And I'm just intrigued by it all. That ending was kind of crazy, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. That was kind of crazy. But I'm just intrigued to see what the heck is going to happen in the 3rd book. I have heard that like everybody kind of hates the 3rd book. I'm not as obsessed with this couple as I thought I would be. I, first of all, don't love either Evangeline or Jax. I definitely think their characters were developed more in this book than they were in book one, so there's that. But Evangeline, I don't know. I don't find anything all that special or interesting about her character. She makes kind of dumb decisions. She's very young. She feels very young. And then Jax, I want to love him more than I do. I think with Jax, I expected him to be more flirtatious and irreverent. We definitely get moments where he's that way, but most of the time he tends to be kind of just like grumpy and annoyed with Evangeline and a little bit cruel and a little bit mean. And that's not fun, you know? I want more flirting. I want more fun, you know? I knew by like the halfway mark of this book that it wasn't going to be a 5-star read, and that kind of made me sad because I know so many people who adore this book with their heart and soul, and like I can kind of see why, but I'm also a little bit like, did we read the same book? I have another book that I am loving so much. I think I mentioned this in my last update. I have been working my way through Wait and Hope by Might Be Writing. This is a Dramione fan fiction that came highly recommended from Jessin Reads Romance. And I'm so glad that she featured this fanfic in that video because I don't think I would have picked it up otherwise. I've definitely heard of this before, but I had no idea what this one was about. And it's everything. Oh my God. So Draco and Hermione have been married for probably like 5 years at this point. And part of Hermione's job at the ministry is that she works with objects that have been imbued with dark magic. And so at the very beginning of the book, we see Hermione waking up from this ordeal of coming into contact with this dark object that basically made her pass out and took away all of her memories from the last 6 years. So she does not remember anything of her developing relationship with Draco or getting married to him or anything like that. Because I think their romance started about 6 years ago. So now Draco and Hermione are finding their way back to each other, and oh my God. When I tell you guys this is the Dramione fanfiction of my dreams, I am not exaggerating. I adore Marriage in Trouble. I love those romances, and that's really what this is because, like I said, Hermione doesn't remember anything of their relationship. So at the beginning of this fanfiction, she still sees him as this shitty person, basically. And so Draco's definitely kind of walking on eggshells around her at the beginning. He has no idea how to navigate repairing their relationship, healing it. And Hermione, of course, is, you know, reeling from losing her memories from the last 6 years. And it's just so beautiful. There's like the perfect amount of angst. It's very sweet. We see how much Draco loves Hermione, even though we don't ever get his POV. We might get it later on in the fanfic. I do know that there is another fanfiction written by this author that takes place in the world of Wait and Hope that is a prequel, all from Draco's POV, where we are seeing how they fell in love and got married in the first place. So I'm very excited about reading that fanfiction at some point. I have a feeling this is gonna end up being one of my like top 5 favorite Dramione fics I've ever read. Granted, I haven't read that many, but I know I've read more than like 10 or so at this point. But this is just everything I could want from Dramione. I love the amnesia trope. I love Marriage in Trouble. Like I said, I love just second chance romances in general. So yeah, very excited to jump back into this. I'll definitely update you guys when I pick up my last fantasy book for this vlog. I'm choosing between Days of Blood and Starlight, which is book 2 in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini Taylor. This is YA fantasy with an epic romance. It's incredible. I read book 1 in December. I talked about that book a lot in one of my Vlogmas vlogs. So yes, very, very excited about this. And then I'm also thinking of picking up Sapphire Flames by Ilona Andrews, which is book 4 in their Hidden Legacy series. This is an urban fantasy romance series that I've been so excited about continuing. So I'll pick one of these and then I'll update you guys once I start something. right, hey guys. It's been a couple of days since I last updated you all. It is now Sunday night, the 28th. It is time to wrap up this vlog for sure. So let me explain the B-roll clip that you guys just saw. So I bought some overlays from the Dusty shop. I am obsessed with their products. They have dust jackets for most of Sarah J. Maas's books. I also bought their dust jacket set for the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black, and they have now recently come out with overlays for the Throne of Glass series. So far they have released overlays for Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight, which is why in that last clip I put, you know, skip this clip if you haven't read these books yet, because those overlays definitely have some possible spoilers. And also I just thought I would take a moment to show off these beautiful covers that I have from the Dusty shop. So they did a set for the entire Throne of Glass series and the entire ACOTAR series. This is book 1. Just absolutely beautiful. Look at that glass castle. I'm just like obsessed. And then here is the cover for Crown of Midnight with Selena and Nehemia. Just absolutely gorgeous. And there are my babies, Kale and Dorian. And so yeah, I ordered their overlay sets for Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight when they were doing a Black Friday sale. Like, I highly recommend checking out their site for Black Friday because it's a pretty good discount. It's like 25% off. Speaking of Sarah J. Maas, speaking of my girl, Sarah Janet, I did have a couple more thoughts about House of Sky and Breath that I wanted to talk about. So possible spoilers for this book. I might try to be vague though, but just in case, skip to this timestamp if you want to avoid spoilers for this. So in my last update about this book, when I had just finished this, I was feeling very conflicted about the ending. I think I'm gonna cut out a lot of what I said though in that last clip because I don't really agree with myself anymore. But basically I was going on and on about how I felt like the ending on one hand was like some really cool Avengers type shit, and on the other hand I felt like it was a gimmick for Sarah to combine this series with the ACOTAR series. And yeah, but since I last updated you guys, I watched this video from Madison. I will link her channel down in the description below. She did a video all about Sarah J. Maas's series and how they're all interconnected, and possible theories that she found and that she came up with for how this series is going to move forward and how the Sarah J. Maas universe is going to move forward. Since watching that video, I have since realized that SJM has absolutely left so many breadcrumbs for this idea in her books, going all the way back to like A Court of Mist and Fury, and honestly even Throne of Glass, book 1 in this series, introduces the idea of portals and going to different worlds. So, you know, she definitely has done the work of connecting her series. This was a long time coming. So now that I've like reflected more on that, I'm definitely more excited going into House of Flame and Shadow than I was right after finishing this book. It really makes sense now how she specifically at the moment is combining ACOTAR with Crescent City, because ACOTAR is still an ongoing series, whereas Throne of Glass, I definitely think Throne of Glass has a place in this multiverse. Like I said, it's introduced even in book 1, but maybe that won't get introduced for a while, who knows. I would love to see some Throne of Glass connections though in House of Flame and Shadow, but we will have to see. Reading updates. Since I last spoke with you guys, I have finished like 3 things, I think. 2 fan fictions, and I read the entirety of Sapphire Flames by Lona Andrews, and I'm very excited to discuss this. But first up, I finished Wait and Hope by Might Be Writing. I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. I still think that it's like the Dramione fanfiction of my dream. I thought that this was a beautiful marriage in trouble, amnesia, second chance romance story between Draco and Hermione. I loved the found family aspect, of course. That's what I love about like pretty much every Harry Potter fan fiction that I've read is that found family element, but I thought it was very well done in this one. The writing was great. I definitely will be reading the prequel, which is called Beginning and End. That one is from Draco's POV, and I'm very excited about reading that one at some point. And then late last night, I read the entirety of A Dress with Pockets by Pacific Rimbo. I have read a couple of fics by this author before, and I've really, really enjoyed them. All right, I just had to free up some space on my camera, but we are back. So this is a Pansy Parkinson and Neville Longbottom novella fic. And this was just delightful. I really enjoyed it. It was 5 chapters, and there is an audio version of this on Spotify. So I flew through this last night. I gave this one 4 stars. We love a jaded, grumpy heroine with just a sweet cinnamon roll hero. We love that pairing, right? I think I can move on to Sapphire Flames, which I just finished like an hour ago. I decided not to give you guys any updates while I was reading this, just because with Ilona Andrews and with this series, like once you start a book in this series, you kind of can't stop. The action is pretty nonstop. The pacing is pretty quick the entire time. So I just wanted to kind of read the whole thing and then give you guys all of my thoughts. But this is book 4 in their Hidden Legacy series. By the way, if you didn't know, Ilona Andrews is a husband and wife writing duo. They write mostly urban fantasy and urban fantasy romance series. This one is definitely more of a romance series than I think their Kate Daniels series. I think that one is technically more just urban fantasy with a romance subplot, whereas this one, the romances definitely are more central to the plot. But we have Catalina, who is the younger sister to Nevada, who was the heroine in the first 3 books of the series, and now she has taken over House Baylor, which in this world, this takes place in Houston, but think of this as like a parallel universe Houston, because for one thing, magic exists and there are these houses of families with different kinds of powers. And so Catalina is now the head of her family's house. And she's also the head of their private investigation agency. And at the beginning of this book, we see that someone has come to Catalina asking her for help because her mother and sister have been murdered. And so this is a murder mystery. And we see that Alessandro, our hero here, he was introduced, I think, in Wildfire, which is book 3 of the series. So we see him a little bit, but he comes into the story because he's also connected to this murder in some interesting ways. And so what ensues is the 2 of them working together to solve this murder. And of course they're falling for each other, though they have some history. And like I said, Wildfire, one of the previous books, like they have pretty much been obsessed with each other for years, and now they're back in each other's lives. And I enjoyed this so much. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna settle on 5 stars. I've given pretty much all the other books in this series 5 stars. I love how these books are written. Like I said, the pacing is just so well done, pretty quick the entire time. We definitely get moments and scenes of downtime, but for the most part, there's a lot of action scenes, lots of magic going on. I love the magic system of this world and of this series. It's so interesting. And I adore Alessandro and Catalina as our 2 main characters. I love seeing Catalina now because when in the first 3 books of the series, she was about 18, I think, and she was definitely a lot less mature than she is in this book and in this part of the series. You know, she was just younger and she didn't have to worry about all of the things that she has to worry about now. And it's just so cool and interesting to see how mature Catalina is now and how competent she is and how intelligent she is. She has some similarities to Nevada, but like she really is her own person with her own personality. And I just love her as a main character to follow. And Alessandro has some slight similarities to Rogan, who's the hero of the first 3 books, but they're also 2 very different people at the same time. Alessandro is very flirtatious and comes off as irreverent, but he is also a badass, and I feel like he is the perfect match for Catalina. And one of the things I love about their story is that Catalina is what is known as a siren. Her power is that she can make people love her, basically. But there's a lot of downsides to that power. Basically, if she doesn't control it, people become obsessed with her. Like, for instance, when she was a kid, when she was a baby, a nurse from the hospital tried to kidnap her, and there were multiple instances growing up when she didn't know how to control her abilities, where people would do crazy things to stay with her, basically. And so it's just like really cool to see the development of that power and how she uses it, and like the many facets of her abilities, as well as the many facets of Alessandro's ability, because his main magic comes from the fact that he can nullify other people's powers, but he seems to have other very interesting abilities as well. So I'm very, very excited to eventually continue on with this series with Emerald Blaze. By the way, I am obsessed with this cover. I love it so much. Yeah, I just thought this was so well done. I might even love Alessandro and Catalina more than Nevada and Rogan, which is crazy of me to say because I love Nevada and Rogan with my heart and soul. They kind of give me slight vibes of like Aelin and Rowan from Throne of Glass and Bryce and Hunt from Crescent City, but I love them more than Bryce and Hunt. Like, they are a top tier book couple for me, and I might love Alessandro and Catalina just a little bit more because I love flirty heroes. That is a weakness of mine, and Alessandro is very flirty, but like I said, he's also very competent and a badass. And Rogan would have like moments of flirting with Nevada, but first and foremost, he's like a grumpy, brooding hero, which is why, like I said, he reminds me of like Rowan and Hunt. But yeah, this part of the series is off to a fantastic start. Here are all of the books that I read for this vlog, as well as those 2 fanfics that I talked about. And I hope you guys enjoyed this fantasy romance reading vlog. I definitely will be doing another one of these in February because there are a lot of other fantasy romance series that I want to continue in the coming weeks. And like I said, I will also be doing a reading vlog for House of Flame and Shadow. Very, very exciting for sure. So I would love it if you guys would leave a comment if you want to discuss any of the books or series that I brought up in this video. Please be sure to not comment any spoilers, especially with like House of Sky and Breath, for instance. But I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!